What if death was never the end, but a door? Not a conclusion, but a graduation. A journey so vast and intricate that entire civilizations built their lives around preparing for it? In the golden sands of Egypt, under the gaze of colossal pyramids and timeless temples, one truth echoed louder than any other: this life is merely the beginning. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not something to be feared or mourned. It was a sacred passage, a return, a test, and they were obsessed with mastering it. But why? Why did a civilization pour so much time, energy, and divine science into what happens after the last breath? Why were their greatest architectural feats not temples of the living but tombs for the dead? Why did they leave behind scrolls, sarcophagi, and spells meticulously designed to guide a soul through the treacherous terrain of the afterlife? These weren't just religious practices. They were technologies of the soul, esoteric maps encoded in myth, ritual, and geometry, designed not just to comfort but to transform. Their obsession wasn't with death, it was with eternity. In this video, we will journey deep into the mystical heart of ancient Egypt and uncover why the afterlife held such profound importance to their culture. We'll explore the secret teachings of the soul's journey through the Duat, the underworld. We'll examine the symbology hidden in pyramids, the ritual of mummification, and the spiritual physics behind the Book of the Dead. But more than history, this is about you. Because what the ancients knew isn't just locked in hieroglyphs and stone, it lives in your breath, your dreams, your inner world. Their sacred science of death is actually a guide to life. So ask yourself, are you prepared for what comes next? Or better yet, are you even living if you don't know where you're going? To understand Egypt's obsession with the afterlife, we must first step into their cosmic worldview, a lens through which they perceived not only life and death, but the invisible threads binding the two. The ancient Egyptians didn't believe in a linear life, ending abruptly in death. They saw existence as cyclical, mirrored in the daily resurrection of the sun god Ra, who died each night only to rise again at dawn. To them, this daily solar journey was more than metaphor. It was a divine reality echoed in every human soul. Just as Ra navigated the Duat, the underworld, so too would every human spirit after death. Death, then, was not a tragedy. It was a divine rehearsal, a sacred transition. And at the heart of this belief stood a central doctrine of Egyptian spirituality, Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order, truth, and balance. In life, a person was expected to live in accordance with Ma'at, acting justly, speaking truth, and maintaining harmony in family, society, and spirit. In death, this principle became literal. Upon death, the soul, or Ba, would stand in the Hall of Two Truths before Osiris, Lord of the Afterlife. There, the heart believed to store a person's true essence would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. A heavy heart burdened by lies or chaos would be devoured by the monstrous Ammit. A light heart balanced in truth would be granted passage to the field of reeds, a paradisiacal realm mirroring Egypt at its most fertile and divine. But here's where the esoteric traditions deepen. The Egyptians did not just fear this judgment, they trained for it. Their rituals, myths, and monuments were preparation tools. The famous Book of the Dead wasn't a funerary manual in the modern sense. It was an encoded guide, a soul's instruction manual filled with spells known as utterances designed to protect, empower, and awaken the deceased during their passage through the underworld. This sacred knowledge was reserved for those initiated into the mysteries, often priests, royalty, or the spiritually attuned. These teachings reflected the Hermetic axiom that would later emerge from Egypt's spiritual legacy: as above, so below. The afterlife journey was not separate from life, it was reflected within it. To the Egyptians, the human being was not merely a body. Each person was composed of several subtle components: Ka, vital essence or life force; Ba, the unique personality or soul; Ak, the transfigured spirit or divine self; and Rin, one's true name, a vibrational code of identity. The death rituals weren't about preservation, they were about integration. The process of mummification, for example, was a physical act mirroring metaphysical truths: to preserve the vessel, to honor the Ka, to awaken the Ak. Even the tombs were carefully engineered spiritual machines. Pyramids, especially, were not mere tombs, they were stargates, resonant structures aligning with specific constellations and designed to assist the pharaoh's soul in its ascent to the stars. Their mythologies reinforced this. Osiris, the god of death and resurrection, was the archetypal figure who taught that rebirth only comes through sacrifice. His dismemberment and resurrection symbolized a deeper truth: that the soul must be broken and reassembled, purified and empowered before attaining attaining divine immortality. In essence, the afterlife wasn't a place, it was a process, a sacred transformation that mirrored the alchemical stages of dissolution, purification, and rebirth. To prepare for death was to prepare for spiritual transmutation. And this is why the Egyptians were obsessed, not with dying, but with becoming. They believed that only those who mastered the mysteries of death could truly live. To truly grasp why ancient Egypt was so consumed with the afterlife, we must look beyond the surface of ritual and mythology and peer into the symbolic architecture of their worldview. For the Egyptians, the afterlife was not a belief, it was a science, a metaphysical discipline, a divine technology of consciousness. Imagine life as a sacred training ground, a preparatory stage for the soul's real journey. The Egyptians saw the physical world, Ta, as merely the outermost layer of a multidimensional reality. Hidden beneath the sands of ordinary perception lay subtler realms, the Duat, the underworld or unseen dimension, and the Aru, the paradise for the righteous. But these weren't external heavens or hells. They were inner states, vibrational planes of being. Each realm the soul passed through after death corresponded to an inner chamber of the self. And each test the soul faced in the afterlife symbolized a psychic purification, an encounter with shadow or truth. The Book of the Dead described this journey with stunning detail. It spoke of gates guarded by entities with names like He Who Lives on Snakes or She Who Cuts Shadows. At each stage, the soul was required to recite specific spells, passwords, or confessions, proving that it had attained a certain level of wisdom, balance, or awareness. These weren't mere incantations, they were mantras of alignment. Just as a computer only unlocks when the right code is entered, so too did the Egyptians believe that the soul's progression depended on vibrational precision. To speak the wrong word, to forget a sacred name, was to lose your way in the afterlife maze. This is why names and words held such tremendous power. A name wasn't a label, it was a frequency. To know the true name of a god or demon was to hold command over that force. So why all this effort? Because the ultimate goal wasn't simply to survive death. It was to master it, to become an Akh, a being of light, a transfigured soul, radiant and sovereign, capable of traversing the celestial realms and communing with the gods. The Akh was what we might call today the higher self or divinized self. It was the state of spiritual completion. The Egyptian obsession with the afterlife was, in truth, an obsession with transformation. Let us consider the tombs, for example, not as burial chambers, but as alchemical wombs. Within their sealed stone walls, the initiate, whether dead or symbolically dying, would begin the process of spiritual gestation. The darkness, silence, and stillness of the tomb mimic the inner descent of the soul, the retreat into the unconscious where true transmutation occurs. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness before it sprouts, so too must the soul die to the outer world before awakening to its eternal nature. And in this mystery, we find echoes of the sacred initiations that once took place in Egypt's most guarded temples. The initiate would be ritually killed, stripped of ego, status, and identity, and made to journey through chambers of symbolic death. Blindfolded, tested, and guided only by inner light, they would emerge days later, reborn into gnosis, having touched the threshold of the divine. This wasn't superstition. This was a blueprint for awakening. So when we say the Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife, we're really saying this. They were devoted to becoming more than human, to transcending fear, to dying before dying, and to awakening in life as a living Akh, a being who walks between worlds. In part 2, we will dive even deeper into these mysteries, the hidden meanings behind their funerary art, the esoteric structure of the soul, and how modern seekers can still walk this ancient path. If part 1 revealed the map of the Egyptian soul's journey, then part 2 unveils the mechanics of the soul itself and how the ancients believed it could become immortal not by clinging to the body but by mastering consciousness. To understand the depth of Egypt's afterlife obsession, we must look into what they believed a human being truly was. Unlike the modern view, which sees the body as the core and the mind as its byproduct, the Egyptians viewed the human being as a multi-layered soul with many interlocking parts, each with its own function, its own realm, and its own destiny. The most commonly known components were Ka, the vital life force or etheric double. It was the energetic twin that remained near the body after death and was sustained by ritual offerings. Ba, often depicted as a human-headed bird, this was the soul's individuality and personality, its mobility between realms. Akh, the radiant, immortal self, achieved only through purification and spiritual triumph. Run, the sacred name. As long as your name was remembered and spoken, a part of you lived on. Sheut, the shadow, a mysterious and often overlooked element, symbolizing both the unconscious and the hidden power of the soul. This complex anatomy reveals something profound. The Egyptians were not trying to preserve the soul, they were trying to activate it. Each component had to be balanced and harmonized for the soul to transcend the mortal cycle. The tomb art wasn't decorative, it was instructional. Each symbol, hieroglyph, and posture was a piece of a larger spiritual equation. Scenes depicting the weighing of the heart, for example, weren't just moral allegories. They were metaphysical events, showing that the soul must be lighter than a feather together, symbolizing that only those free of karmic weight, attachments, and falsehood could pass through the higher gates. And what of Ma'at, the goddess of cosmic order? She wasn't just a deity, she was the force of balance itself. To live in Ma'at was to live in alignment with the harmony of the cosmos. Every decision, every intention, was a thread woven into your soul's tapestry. The afterlife was not a courtroom judgment, it was a vibrational mirror. Now consider the pyramids not simply tombs, but metaphysical engines. Their precise angles, alignments with stars like Sirius and Orion, and hidden chambers suggest they were designed not just to protect the dead, but to resurrect the soul. Some esoteric traditions teach that the Great Pyramid of Giza was an initiation chamber where sound, geometry, and ritual were used to propel consciousness beyond the physical body. In this view, death was not the end, it was the rite of passage into divine awareness. And life was a rehearsal for that transition. What appears to us as obsession was, in reality, preparation. The ancient Egyptians were not afraid of death, they were scholars of it. They sought to understand its structure, to master its gates, and to become sovereign within it. Even their burial customs were part of this blueprint. The positioning of the body, the amulets placed near the heart, the spells etched into sarcophagi. All of it was calculated to aid the soul's journey, like programming coordinates into a cosmic spacecraft. Everything served the journey inward and upward. So what happened to this knowledge? Much of it, like the Nile's hidden currents, flowed underground into Hermeticism, alchemy, and the mystery schools of Greece and Rome. The idea that life is a preparation for spiritual transformation never disappeared, it simply changed form. In Egypt's temples, tombs, and texts, we find a map not just of the afterlife, but of our own potential. The ancients believed the soul is not something we have, it is something we become. And the true obsession of Egypt? It wasn't with death at all. It was with immortality through awakening. So how can we, modern seekers surrounded by distraction and disconnection, apply the sacred science of the Egyptians in our daily lives? While we may not be building pyramids or reciting spells from the Book of the Dead, the essence of Egypt's wisdom still pulses beneath the surface, offering tools to help us awaken, align, and prepare for the journey beyond this life. Let's begin with the core message. The afterlife begins now. The Egyptians believed that what we call death is not a single event, but a process, a doorway we are always approaching. Every thought, every action, every intention. These were threads woven into the energetic body, shaping the soul's weight, clarity, and direction. Here are 5 practical ways to embody this ancient knowledge today. 1. Live in alignment with Ma'at. At the heart of Egyptian spirituality was Ma'at, not just a goddess, but a living principle, truth, balance, and cosmic harmony. To live in Ma'at means to constantly return to inner balance. When you lie, manipulate, or harm, you throw your inner scales out of alignment. When you practice honesty, compassion, and integrity, even when no one sees, you align with the divine current. Practice, at the end of each day, reflect on your actions. Were they rooted in truth? What felt heavy? What felt light? This daily weighing of the heart keeps your soul in tune. Underscore, 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 underscore. 2. Honor the Ka, the energy body. The Ka, the vital force or etheric double, needed nourishment, not just from food, but from ritual and intention. Modern energy healing, breathwork, and Qigong echo this ancient understanding. Practice, begin each morning with a short ritual. Light a candle, speak an intention aloud, and take 5 conscious breaths, imagining golden energy filling your body. This feeds your Ka and sets your frequency for the day. Underscore, 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 underscore. 3. Cultivate the Akh, your luminous self. The Akh was not automatic, it had to be earned. It was the immortal aspect, activated through purification, wisdom, and spiritual initiation. Think of the Akh as your higher self, waiting to be realized through transformation. Practice, engage in conscious shadow work. The Egyptians saw the heart, not the mind, as the seat of wisdom. Journaling about emotional triggers, practicing forgiveness, and releasing attachments all polish the soul's mirror. Underscore, 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 underscore 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 underscore. 4. Sacred remembrance, the power of the Rin. Your Rin, or sacred name, was your vibrational identity. To forget it was to lose power. In modern terms, this speaks to the importance of inner truth and purpose. Practice. Create a personal affirmation or mantra that captures your soul's essence. Speak it daily. This isn't about ego, it's about remembering your divine nature. I am a vessel of light. I walk the path of truth. I return to the source within. Underscore 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 underscore. 5. Create your own rituals of passage. The Egyptians performed elaborate rites not out of superstition but out of intention. Rituals helped them navigate transitions, whether death, birth, or initiation. We can do the same. Practice. Mark moments of change, new jobs, losses, breakthroughs with personal rituals. Light incense, bathe with intention, write a letter to your future self. By making the invisible visible, you train your soul to walk between worlds. Overcoming modern challenges. In today's fast-paced, hyper-material world, the soul is often silenced by the noise of survival. But the Egyptian path teaches us to slow down, to observe the unseen, to honor the eternal. If you feel lost, return to Ma'at. What is true right now? If you feel drained, feed your Ka through stillness and breath. If you feel disconnected, call on your Rin and speak your essence into the void. If you fear death, remember that the soul is not waiting for an ending, it is waiting for your awakening. Egypt's obsession with the afterlife was never about avoiding death. It was about preparing the soul to become eternal. And the only way to prepare for the next life is to fully awaken in this one. The ancients did not fear death as we do. They revered it. To them, death was not an ending, but a sacred transition, a passage through which the soul could either ascend into light or spiral back into forgetfulness. Every temple, every ritual, every symbol carved into stone was part of a grand design to prepare the soul for eternity. What appears to us as an obsession with the afterlife was, in truth, a devotion to life in its most eternal sense. They understood that to live unconsciously is to die many small deaths, but to live with awareness, integrity, and inner alignment is to begin the work of immortality now. Let us take this wisdom not as myth, but as mirror. Ask yourself, what am I preparing my soul for? What am I carrying that will weigh against my heart? And what would change in my life if I began living today as though I were crafting my eternity? The ancient Egyptians left us more than monuments. They left us a map, written in myth and metaphor, carved in stone, whispered through the ages. Now that the sands have shifted and their voices rise again, the question is no longer why they were obsessed with the afterlife, but whether we will have the courage to remember what they never forgot. Live as if your soul is eternal, because it is. Sparkles if this awakens something within you, don't let it fade. Reflect, rewatch, begin your own journey into the sacred mysteries. And if you're ready for more ancient truths, more hidden teachings, subscribe and walk with us through the forgotten doors of wisdom. Would you like a title, thumbnail idea, and description to go along with the video?